The long-awaited remaster of Xenoblade Chronicles X finally released on the Switch last Thursday. If you don't know anything about the game, you're in the best position to play it. If you know nothing about the Xenoblade series, you're probably in an even better position. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is the ultimate version of the critically acclaimed and cult classic Wii U game of the same name. It's long been the last big Wii U exclusive outside of the Zelda remasters that needed to make it to the Nintendo Switch, and it was the final Xenoblade game needed to be on the console to complete the quadrilogy of Monolith Software's incredible series. X isn't really a part of the mainline Xenoblade trilogy though. That'll make sense once you play it. There are some connections, but they're minimal. Unlike Xenoblade 1, 2, Torna, Future Redeemed, Xenoblade 3, and 3's DLC, Xenoblade Chronicles X is focused primarily on gameplay and exploration, particularly on combat and doing side quests or side missions. The basic gameplay loop revolves around exploring this incredibly well thought out planet, planting frontier navs, defeating monsters, doing side missions, and all sorts of other interesting side content. There is still a story to Xenoblade Chronicles X, although it's not nearly as important early on compared to the other titles in the series. Unlike Xenoblade 1, for example, the first hour isn't instantly gripping, unless you happen to enjoy the gameplay. I'm pretty much 7 hours in at the time of writing, and I've only finished chapters 1, 2, and 3, as well as the prologue, although I'm about to start the 4th soon. The game has 12 chapters, an epilogue and a prologue, but unlike say Xenoblade 2 or the first game, there's a big level gap between chapters 3 and 4 and the ones afterwards. It's around 5 levels higher, so you're expected to do as much side content as you are expected to do main story missions, if not more side content than actual story progression. Xenoblade has often been described as a series kind of like an MMO, but single player, and Xenoblade Chronicles X is the closest thing to a single player MMO I've ever played. Everything from the side quests, the characters, the graphics, the combat, the missions, the storyline, the exploration, and everything else feel closer to what you'd expect in World of Warcraft than a mainline Final Fantasy game. These criticisms of the series have been mainly lobbied at it because of the combat system. No one compares the mainline stories to MMO expansions, it's only because of the combat, and they only call the combat MMO-like because it's different from turn-based and action RPGs. However, Xenoblade Chronicles X really does feel like what one would envision a stereotypical MMO game would be if it was single player. Although there is a multiplayer component that I have not tried yet. It's basically Monolith Software's attempt at a westernized RPG with MMO-style elements. In development back on the Wii U, they said as much, explicitly saying it was inspired by Bethesda games such as Fallout and Skyrim. This inspiration affects the entire structure of the game. Like Skyrim, it's focused primarily on exploration first and story second. You can see Western influence all across Mira. The game is dubbed by American voice actors, not British ones, and the characters are from America. Back on the MMO comparison though, the player gets basic fetch quests and defeat X amount of enemy quests from a hunt board, just as you would in any MMO. It's kind of like an MMO, plus a Western RPG, plus a Monolith Software JRPG, plus a polished Nintendo release, and it all comes together to be really good and really unique. I haven't played anything like this before. I've been a fan of Xenoblade for a long time. I bought the second game close to release because Etika, may he rest in peace, constantly was hyping the game up in videos and on streams. I didn't like it back then. Later, I played the first game's remaster on the Switch, and I really loved it. I then went back to play its sequel. After that, I played Future Redeemed and Torna. I still haven't played the third game, although I bought it a while back. I just haven't had the time. So I'm no rookie to the franchise. I knew about Alma and a good number of this game's characters, but I didn't know what to expect when going in. I knew it was largely a gameplay-focused experience, and I can confirm that at least so far, it's very gameplay-focused. Compared to other JRPGs, this is pretty refreshing, and honestly, the best part about the game. The gameplay is structured in multiple different types of activities, which are explained to the player after the prologue is over. To summarize, you can take down big enemies, keep the peace, fight small fry, plant frontier navs, collect flora and fauna, rebuild this new world, and probably something else I'm forgetting. However, no matter which path is charted, you'll be doing all of these regardless of what focus the characters take up. Take planting navs, for example. These allow the party to teleport, respawn, and collect resources. Placing them is a focus of side quests, main quests, affinity quests, and is something that has to be done to improve the game's quality of life early on. The easiest way to describe FN sites is that they're this game's version of Breath of the Wild towers. All of the other stuff you'll also likely be doing during the earliest hours of gameplay. But most of my first hours are spent exploring the opening areas of Mira, and looking for anywhere to place these FNs. I also spent it doing combat, but unlike in other games in the series, I wasn't leveling up nearly as quickly as you'd expect in an RPG. In Xenoblade Chronicles X, the player character doesn't level up nearly as fast as Rex or Shulk would. Part of this is because there's different things to level up aside from stats, such as arts to gear, as well as different classes. Arts can be upgraded for more damage or better effects, gear can be upgraded for the same reasons, and classes work the same way they do in every game. Once a class reaches level 10, they can switch to a different one to use new arts. Each class also presents the player with different weapons and things they can use. For example, Right now I'm using a heavier class that can use a titanium longsword, while there are others that can use a big shield or dual swords. Lyn and Elma use those. Unlike the other Xenoblade games, this one largely focuses on player choice and what you choose to do, so it's very similar to a Western RPG in that sense. A large focus of Xenoblade Chronicles X is on choosing which side quests you do and how you make your way through the world. Whether you run through as fast as possible or go through the main storyline and explore and doing various side quests to unlock the skells or other vehicles. The gameplay loop of Xenoblade Chronicles X revolves around exploring, leveling up your characters enough by doing side content, and then eventually progressing through a main chapter. You can only go on certain chapters when the game lets you, so if you're doing an affinity quest, for example, which is what I was doing at one point, you get locked out from progressing through the main storyline until you complete the quest. There is no way to turn the quest down once you've confirmed it. So if you do that, you're stuck finishing it before you can progress any further. This game isn't necessarily amazing. It has a fair amount of jank elements. Graphically it looks beautiful, but the characters look off, for example, but there's a lot of little things that make it super enjoyable to play. And if a game is mainly about having fun, then it's easy to overlook ugly character models. I was dying to enemies over and over and never got upset because the game is just fun. For example, the movement. This is the fastest a Xenoblade game has ever felt. Jumping is so fun to do. It goes far, high, and the best part, there's no fall damage. I also really like the combat of the game. I'm a fan of this style of combat, so having this in X was obviously something I was going to view as a positive. But it's fun to me. Xenoblade combat isn't amazing, there's no weight to it and no collision, but what there is a lot of heart. And also lots of fun moments. This game is closer to the first game than any other in the series though. You can attack while walking, it's also on a bar and not the face buttons. The best part about the combat now is how smooth it feels. Characters in the party will call it whether to use a ranged, special, or a melee one along with some others. If you do that on time, it slows the game down and heals the party. There's also the affinity system in battle, and a new addition is the ability to switch between using a ranged weapon or a melee one, something expanded on in the next games in the series. There's also this really cool ability where you can instantly refill a special by pressing Y, although it's limited to a certain amount per battle. This isn't all there is to combat as there are other features, but it's not worth going into right now. So far, the story hasn't been all too interesting. It's barely been a focus. The real focus of Xenoblade Chronicles X is on its world. The game is set on the planet Mira, where a fleet of humans had to make an emergency landing. Over the months before the unnamed protagonist is taking in, the humans are doing their best to conquer the land and make it their new home. I won't go in further, but what's happened on Mira is actually pretty interesting, and a big highlight of the game for me. Monolith Soft's worlds all feel lived in, as if the planets were alive, that the fauna was actually inhabiting it, and going about their lives, and that flora had a real purpose. Xenoblade Chronicles X is without a doubt the most lived-in Xenoblade title. It feels realer than all the others, and you can tell within hours the amount of thought that Monolith put into making the world feel realistic. Animals don't just have lives, they live by planets that look pretty, but there's something special I can't describe yet about Mira, that I've only felt in the other Xenoblade games and Zelda Breath of the Wild. Is it any surprise that after the incredible work on Xenoblade's worlds, Nintendo had Monolith Soft's support team help on developing Zelda titles? This game is mainly about the player's adventure, at least in the early hours. Because of this, it mainly focuses on the character. Here's the problem with this. The character creation isn't very good. I don't know what it's like for the female character creator, but playing as a guy, there's immediately a lack of customization. The game barely has any hair types, but more might be unlockable later on. The game does feature a lot of scars and facial options, so that's a positive if you want to use them. What it does have is a barrage of voiceover options from the voice actors of some of the premier roles of the times. I played with Adam Howden's voice. He was the voice of Shulk, which is the same one he's doing here. I don't know if these are new lines, but I'm glad to hear Shulk say anything again. I really like Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. I've been enjoying my whole playthrough so far. It's been so much fun to explore Mira, to take on the most basic enemies, and to do side quests. This is a very addictive game. I was doing side quests and then wanted to find more frontier nav sites, then I wanted to do some combat, then I wanted to hunt for treasures. There's always a feeling of wanting to do just one more thing, and it's incredibly fun so far. The more I've played, the more I've liked the game. This is the first impression/early review that I've made in a while, so I hope you enjoyed it. I normally would wait until completing a game before writing anything about it, but Xenoblade Chronicles X is so long I wanted to make something about the game before it's completely out of the gaming zeitgeist. I've also wanted to just cover the game a few times before I make a full review. I don't know how much my opinions will change by the time the complete video is out, how similar it will be to these early impressions. I'm not sure what video I'll make on the game after I beat it either, but I'll definitely cover it some more in the future. If you want to see that or support the channel at all, leave a like, subscribe, comment. Let me know if you've played Xenoblade before, are you going into this game fresh, or have you played it on the Wii U? I hope you enjoyed the video. Check out the videos on screen now. I hope you have a good day, and thanks for watching.